Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Mike. So today I wanted to talk about men's issues in therapy. Um, and the interesting thing is that there is certainly for men a stigma to being in therapy. And in addition to that, I think that very often the process of therapy, we think traditionally of talking about our emotions and exploring the past. And there's the stereotype that men aren't as in touch with their feelings and they let's problem solve and all that. And there's some truth to that, of course. And obviously, there are some men who are very in touch with their feelings, and even men that are not as in touch. Doesn't mean people don't have feelings, of course. And there are also many women who are very, let's problem solve. We got a problem. Let's deal with it. So I don't want to paint too broad of a brush. But I do think that there is some truth to the fact that the therapy as it exists today does emphasize the more expressing of emotion, getting in touch with emotion, exploring the past, understanding, and kind of this process talking. And the truth is, many men want to be more solution focused. They want a more problem solving, solution focused approach, much more active, much more directive, perhaps in some ways more of coaching, kind of like has been called therapeutic coaching, and a lot of the work that I do, um, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and the different types of therapy under that umbrella, uh, rational emotive behavior therapy, choice theory, solution focused, even things like NLP, um, positive psychology. Um, these are tend to be more solution focused, short term, directive, active, a lot of behavior modification or behavioral activation, taking action, really appeals to men, I think, in general. And again, not all men, and certainly women, it would appeal to as well. But I definitely focus on more of the cognitive behavioral umbrella term. And I do think that it does have more of an appeal to men. Everything from young young men, adolescents, um, and young men to middle-aged men and older men. Um, I think that they're just it just fits in more with the way a lot of men think. Now, uh, cognitive behavioral therapy doesn't ignore emotions. Quite the contrary. They understand that very often emotions is the thing that motivates us. We feel bad, right? We feel something, and it doesn't feel good. And so the I'm sorry, I'm getting a cold. So I think that there is a place for emotion. The idea that CBT doesn't address emotion is not true. It's hard to address the emotion directly, because in CBT we believe that it's a lot of our thoughts and actions that contribute to cause or at least exacerbate the emotion, and to change the emotion directly through the emotion is challenging and difficult. But if we change what we think and do, that can get us out of that emotional state. So, for example, using just behavioral activation says if a person's depressed, chances are they're engaging in behaviors that reinforce the depression. They're sleeping in late. They don't get up early. They don't get dressed. They don't shower, shave. They don't open the blinds. They don't call friends. They don't go for a walk. They stop going to the gym. Um, all of those things are the exact opposite of what you want to do, because doing those things reinforces the depression. If you start doing the things that you did when you weren't depressed, that behavior will push you and kind of catapult you out of the depressed state. Similarly, for anxiety, people tend to avoid things when they're anxious. we avoid people, places, things, or we tend to over prepare because we're so nervous and anxious. We kind of over prepare and overcompensate. Again, those behaviors just reinforce the anxiety. So by confronting, by going, by doing, by limiting the time and not working ourselves up, kind of doing the appropriate amount, and sometimes it's hard to judge that, we will reduce the anxiety. That's very appealing to men because it's very practical, it's very pragmatic. There are steps that we can take, and that is something that really speaks to men. It's a more solution-focused problem, concrete. Same thing with cognition. It's the idea that our thoughts tend to get us in trouble, that we ruminate, we obsess, we assume the worst. And we can challenge that. We can say, well, where's the evidence for this? Where am I getting this from? Why must things be the way I want them to be? It's a very kind of directive, confrontational with ourselves. Like, why am I thinking? Would I say this to a friend? This I think this kind of having tools and techniques really appeals to a lot of men and young men and even boys, where they're doing something. A lot of times when people are in traditional talk therapy, supportive therapy, psychoanalysis, a lot of men will feel like it was fine, it was good, they felt supported, it felt good, but they felt like they weren't given tools. They were more of a passive participant. Now, obviously, they were greatly involved psychologically. There was a lot of stuff going on inside, a lot of work, inner work, but they didn't feel like they had like specific tools to actually do something. And again, a lot of men, but not all, want something concrete. They want something to get a hold of. And so my approach combines, as I said, cognitive behavioral, rational motive behavior, choice theory or reality therapy, solution-focused, positive psychology, some NLP, and even more recently, as I've done some videos on, evolutionary psychology. And these are, again, very practical, pragmatic approaches. Now, I do tend to do, when I'm using this with men and men's issues, do more of a coaching model. Because a lot of men feel like that's really what they need. They don't really need therapy, certainly not long-term therapy. They need more of like a short-term therapist / coach. Now, of course, it also depends on the issue. Obviously, if a person has a real diagnosable issue, if they have OCD or ADHD or they're major depression, if it's a diagnosable condition, that you'd want to be treated for that diagnosable condition. But a lot of people, a lot of men especially, it's not that they necessarily have a real diagnosable issue. They may have some depression, but it's not necessarily clinical depression, or they may have anxiety, but it's not an anxiety disorder. It doesn't rise to the level of a clinical issue, but it is still distressing. And I'm going to talk about that in the next video, where the difference between having a regular problem of life, problems of living, versus a diagnosable condition. So anyway, I wanted to introduce this. So again, this is for men's issues. Men are suffering from an epidemic of loneliness, which I am going to talk about also in a future video. They're very isolated. They feel like they have no one to talk to. And it's important that men have an outlet, and they have an outlet in a way that speaks to the way men process issues and situations. And again, not all men, but many men. So I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to speaking to you the next time. Bye-bye.